How are we doing, guys? LUTV, Tottenham 3, Leeds 0, post-match review of the game. So, look, it's never good to lose any game of football, especially when you lose pretty heavily. But ultimately, you know, I think, what, we're 16 games into the Premier League season now, 17 actually, 17 games into the Premier League season. I think we're very much under the impression now, and we know that we're going to get games like this season, especially when we play the top teams, the style we play so open. And we play beautiful football, and I would never change the way we play for 1 second. And I'm going to stay quite clear about that. I don't want us to go compact and defend in a deep block against these teams. I think ultimately, in the long term, the strategy that we're employing in every single game this season will work out for the better. And I think this season, you know, in the medium term, by the end of the season, we will gain more points playing this style of football than we will lose. Yeah, I know, of course, today we've lost the game heavily. We lost the game against Manchester United heavily. Against Chelsea, you know, we lost control of the game. But that's just the nature of how we play. We play open, expansive football for a reason, because it gets us chances. It creates chances for us. We scored 30 goals in 17 games. This is unheard of for a newly promoted team. And look, you know, there'll be a lot of criticism for our style of football. But, you know, I'm going to go through the goals, the whole momentum of the game. Of course, probably the first big talking point is a fantastic ball into the box. I think 20 minutes into the game from Rafinha. Patrick Bamford gets around the back of Toby Alderweireld, or it might have been Eric Dyer actually, gets around the back of him, and it just kind of comes off the top of Patrick Bamford's head rather than kind of heading it down. It can't quite get over the ball, and unfortunately just flies over the bar. But that's probably the biggest chance early on in the game. At that stage, you know, I think at the start of the game we started really well. You know, sharp passing, sharp movement, good control of the game. You know, again, we saw Calvin Phillips positioned ahead of the halfway line, just, you know, mopping up any kind of second balls. Matthijs Klick getting on the ball, you know, picking out some really nice passes. Rodrigo getting on the ball. Everyone's sort of getting a touch on the ball, and I think we had sort of a lot of the ball in that first sort of 20-25 minutes of the game. And I thought we were playing really well at that point, to be honest. I thought we probably deserved to possibly be ahead at that point in the game. But ultimately, we make a big mistake on the first goal. Big mistake. You know, of course, is it a penalty? If I'm being honest, I don't think it is a penalty. Watching it back, you know, the contact is outside the area. But am I going to complain about that too much? No, I'm not. I'm not going to complain about that too much, because we made the mistake in the first place. You know, if you give the referee a decision to make, I know VAR, it should be better than it is. But if you give an opportunity for VAR to give a penalty against you by diving in, you know, recklessly and making a mistake in the first place, you can't have too many complaints. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. And we lost the game 3-0, so I'm not going to start complaining about a penalty given early in the game. But no, it wasn't a penalty. It probably wasn't a penalty. But, you know, we make a stupid mistake, a really stupid mistake, you know, in terms of giving the ball away in that kind of area under no pressure. We know exactly how Tottenham play. You know, the exact thing Tottenham want is a loose pass that they can break on. You know, it's Bergwijn who breaks on it. That is exactly what they want. Bergwijn, Kane, Son, we've seen them do it so many times this season. It's the main strength they have, and it's why they struggle against more compact teams. But ultimately, the goal had nothing to do with our system. Let's be clear about that. It had nothing to do with our tactical system. It was just a mistake. It was a mistake, and I'm not going to hammer Illan Meslier too much for it. You know, he's just gone a bit too ambitious there, maybe showing a little bit of inexperience there at that moment in time. But Illan Meslier has saved us a lot of points this season, so I'm not going to sit here and criticise Illan Meslier too heavily, because he made some good saves in that second half, to be fair, that, you know, didn't entirely redeem himself, but he did at least, you know, make some saves and show some character to bounce back from that early mistake to keep the score down in the end, you know, towards the end of the game. And that's the thing, you know, it was mistakes in that first half. I thought we were okay in that first half. I thought we were more than okay, to be honest. I know it's a 2-0 down at half-time, which is, you know, when you're 2-0 down to Tottenham, it's never a good place to be at half-time. Never a good place to be. You know, it's probably the one teams in the whole league that you don't want to concede the first goal to, because then you invite that counter-attack purely. They can sit back in the low block. They can stay compact. And that's ultimately exactly how the game kind of panned out, really. I still think we had a lot of the play in that first half, but it just felt like that first goal massively took the angle off that first sort of half an hour for us. I think we'd never really quite recovered those same levels, you know, in terms of on the ball. We started to make a lot of mistakes, maybe try and force things a little bit too much. But let's remember, we're a newly promoted team. You know, it's expectation levels that I think everyone puts on Leeds United at the moment. I think it needs to be a little bit more realistic. I still think this team having shown what it has shown at times this season and for much of the season, I still think it's got a very good chance of really pushing for mid-table and possibly even breaking into that top 10. You know, I still think that that is definitely something we're going to achieve. I think certainly in terms of the pure football we play in open play, I don't think there's any question about that. We're a very, 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 very good team. But yeah, look, when you go 2 down for half time, the second goal is just pure quality. It's absolutely top quality. And you know, yeah, you could say the man-to-man marking system. Struijk went to mark Kane. Kane just kind of drifts past Pascal Struijk and puts a quality ball into the box. You could maybe say, if you want to be ultra critical of Leeds United, that it's down to the man-to-man marking system. But for me, I'm not going to go down that angle. I think it's purely on the basis of the quality that Tottenham possess. You know, Heung-min Son is one of the best forwards in the whole world at this moment in time. Harry Kane is a very, very good striker himself and is world class himself. And they just combine to score what is a really good goal from Tottenham's point of view. You know, I think in terms of the only thing I think we could do differently, you know, it's margins from us. It's margins. You know, Pascal Struijk gets dribbled past, and Stuart Dallas just for that half a second loses Heung-min Son. You know, he recovers his position, but it's just that half a second too late. I'm not going to hammer the players for that because it's the quality you're up against at the end of the day. So we go in at half time, and look, it's been a hard lesson that first half. You know, it was a hard lesson that first half in terms of we played well enough to go in level and possibly even going ahead. On another day, we could have gone in ahead. Spurs had the big 2 chances, and they took both of them. So we could go in, you know, level at half time. We don't. But ultimately, in that second half, we just didn't play well enough. That second half, it was a mess from us in that second half, really. And I think that was just the nature of the way the game had gone at that point. You know, the fact it was 2-0. Had it been 1-0 at half time, I think we'd have seen probably a better Leeds performance. Would we have got back into the game? Who knows? Probably not, in all honesty, because of Tottenham's threat on their counter-attack was just incredible throughout the game, to be fair. But I think we'd have given probably a better account in that second half, to be fair. And it's easy to just look at this game as a 3-0 shocking second half performance. But let's not forget how good we were at spells in that first 45. I won't say it was a brilliant, outstanding first 45 from us, but we did show enough in that first 45 to say that against lesser teams with a bit less quality, certainly going forward and defensively in both boxes, we'd have, you know, probably caused a lot more problems there. But look, it's just a bit of a lesson for us. I think we've seen enough from the last couple of games, from the whole season, to say that this isn't going to become a pattern. It's not going to become a pattern for me, so I'm not worried about that in the slightest. A lot of teams have been beaten heavily by Tottenham this season. Southampton, for one. You know, look where Southampton are on the table. They lost 5-2 to Tottenham at home, so you know it's going to happen from time to time. I think teams that play a high line against Tottenham are always at high risk of losing those games heavily. But obviously, we're going into that second half, and we needed a quick second half, a quick start to that second half to get back into the game. We needed to change the momentum of the match after the last sort of 10 minutes of the first half, where it did feel like the Tottenham second goal came at a really good time for them, to be fair. Obviously, the second half, we didn't really show that energy, that same kind of tempo that we did in the first half, and Spurs get the third goal. It's a set piece again from us. Again, you know, it's not down to the system. Third goal from a set piece. You know, it's just we just let Toby Alderweireld get in front of Phillips. I think Bamford should do a little bit better. I think Meslier, to be fair, should do better as well. It's not a particularly clean header in on goal. I think he should do better there, in all honesty. And I think obviously you could even say in the build-up to the corner, Meslier kind of palmed it out for a corner quite unnecessarily in the end. Didn't really keep hold of the ball. But again, Illan Meslier has been quality all season for us. Let's not go too harsh on any individuals, not just Illan Meslier, any individuals. You know, we did make mistakes today, no doubt about it, but it happens. We made mistakes against West Brom, we made mistakes against Burnley, but the difference in quality is huge, huge in these games. You know, when you can make mistakes against Burnley and West Brom out the back, and to be honest, the performance today was probably better than that second half against Burnley. We won the game against Burnley, so sometimes the result doesn't always tell the full story. I think you've got to really take into consideration the team you're playing. But when you do play a team like that, because it wasn't a 3-0 game, it wasn't a 3-0 game today at all, but when you play a team of that quality and you play quite open, expansive football, you can easily lose that game quite heavily. Easily, because you give them any chances on the break or in open play. You know, when you try and play that high line and almost play them offside, there's such intelligent movement, you can lose the game quite heavily, or you can concede a lot of goals at the very least. Of course, just looking at my notes down there, there's questions about the style. Of course, after the game, there always is of this Leeds team. I'm used to it now. I think we're all used to it now. But for me, I disagree entirely. I think maybe the second goal is probably the only one, if you're being ultra critical, that you can sort of put down to a man-to-man marking system and playing with a high press. I think all the other goals were just set pieces. So I'm not reading into that, to be fair, too much. I don't think there's any kind of basis to say that, to be honest. And I'm very clear on that, to be honest. I don't think there's any kind of basis to say that our style of football has directly caused that, today. I think the defence as well. The defence will come under question as well, but I don't think there was anyone in the back line who had a particularly poor game. I can't really think of that. Again, the goals came on set pieces. It's just one of those things, I'm quite relaxed about it because we're in a really good position in the table. We've had a really good week before this. If we didn't win the last 2 games, maybe I'd be a little bit more worried, but we won the 2 games. We kept clean sheets. I think defensively in open play, we did quite well today. I thought we did do quite well. Tottenham didn't create chance after chance after chance at 3-0. I thought it could have turned into a nasty one at 3-0, to be fair. 40 minutes to go in the game. It could have turned nasty at 3-0, but it didn't. It was partly because Tottenham kind of drops back a little bit and just kind of saw the game out, and I thought it was partly because we used the substitutions at really good times. Shackleton, Poveda, Pablo came on. I'm not going to say they had outstanding impacts on the game, but they did kind of bring a new energy to the team. They had good impacts on the game. I'm not going to say they were brilliant, but they did have that positive impact in that sense. I think they were really well timed substitutions off Bielsa. I think avoiding it turned into a really nasty defeat. But yeah, just looking at my notes down here, I think obviously the midfield, first half, did really well. Did really, really well. But then second half, we just started to become a little bit sloppy in terms of our passing out the back, and in the middle third of the pitch, we weren't really able to get anything going. And a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the decisions we made in that second half were quite rushed and poor decisions. Sometimes players would take shots when they should have, laid the ball off out wide, and then sometimes players went for crosses when they should have took shots. And look, breaking down Tottenham is a very, very difficult thing to do. They're one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league in terms of soaking up pressure. They are so good at that. And they're hard to create clear-cut chances against because they defend really well on the compacts, low block, and we've seen this all season. And Mourinho gets criticised for it. But for me, I look at what Tottenham are doing, and it's quite clear to me Tottenham will win a trophy this season. I'm very, very much of that opinion. And I think, of course, the defeat looks bad now because Tottenham haven't won in 4 games. But as the season progresses, it's clear to see what that Jose Mourinho team's doing. And it's all well and good criticising what they do. The best style of football is the style of football that gets the best out of your team. And in terms of what Tottenham have got there, I think it's showing there today. They got the result. And ultimately, I argue the same. The reason I'm making this point is that I argue the same thing for Leeds. The best style of football is the style of football that suits your players the most. The way we play suits these players perfectly, and we've got to keep doing it. Yes, we'll come up against teams of better quality from time to time, of much better quality from time to time, and we might lose the games heavily. But I still think this season we've showing sides to our game against Man City and Liverpool where we've given them really, really good games. Arsenal, Everton, again, really competitive, and Aston Villa, in the top 7. We won comfortably. So there's just a lot of again, look, it's one of those things. We move on anyway. We move on. We've got a 2-week break now until the next Premier League game. We've got a really good opportunity to put on the cup run now. For me, I think it's a really good opportunity. Obviously, Calvin picking up a booking is probably going to play in that Crawley game now with being banned for Brighton. But yeah, as all I can say really is we had decent control in the first half. We probably could have created more in that spell, but we were good in that first half and didn't deserve to go in 2-0 down. Second half we were poor. I can't say anything else other than that. And Tottenham managed the game really well. That's ultimately the story of the game really. Just seeing if I've got anything else I need to say here. I mean, looking ahead, I feel fine. Long term, I think as we learn from these games, as the season progresses, as we bring in more quality, I think we'll continue to learn from these kind of games, and I think we'll be better this time next year or next season when we come to face the better teams, because we'll have more quality, we'll learn from these moments, and that's what Bielsa did. He showed moments today where he adapted in terms of playing the fullbacks, a little bit deeper. It just didn't work out for us today, and we have to take it on the chin at the end of the day. Any more comments really? First goal's always key in those games, and I think the last thing I want to say is a big thank you, guys. We've just hit 20k today. thank you so much, guys, for your fantastic support. And I'm going to leave it there anyway, guys. I can't thank you guys enough, can't thank you guys enough over the last 2.5 years for your support for this channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already, like the video, and let's have some comments. I see some comments. I think it's just a bit of perspective today, really. But again, the one positive from today, hitting 20k, absolutely fantastic. Your guys' support for this channel, and we will be back later on today with player ratings, and tomorrow we'll have a opposition post-match. And Monday Night Football as well. So plenty of content, guys. Even though we've got a 2-week break to the next league game, there will be plenty more content to come. See you later, guys. LUTV.